Hello, it's Carrie Rhoades here with another video for ScrapbookPal.com. Today I get to share with you how to use the Concord 9th Turnabout stamps. I'm going to be featuring 3 different Turnabout stamps in today's video. And the first one is the marbled background. I find this one to be very easy and a good one for beginners, and it makes amazing backgrounds. Now, in order to turnabout, you're going to need an alignment guide, alignment aid that comes with your stamp. You'll need a stamp positioning tool. You'll need a Turnabout Jig, which is sold separately. You'll need cardstock to stamp on, and 4 different colors of ink, depending on what kind of background you want to make. The colors I'm using were inspired by this background right here. You're also going to want some type of cleaning cloth to clean off your stamp in between stampings. So you're going to take that Turnabout Jig and put it in the corner of your stamp positioning tool. Then take your alignment aid, make sure it says this side up, and line up the X's on both of these tools. Then you're going to remove your stamp from its packaging. You're going to take the stamp face down, so the stamp side is face down, and line it up with the pictures on that alignment aid. You also want to make sure that the X's are still lined up and the jig is still in the corner. Close the door of your stamp positioning tool to pick up the stamp, and you can remove that alignment aid. You won't need it anymore. Keep the jig in your stamp positioning tool and put some temporary adhesive on the back of your cardstock. Make sure the 1 is in the upper right hand corner of your jig, and then you can line up that paper with the registration marks on the jig. You're going to go ahead and ink up the stamp with the first color that you want to use. And when that is inked up really well, you'll close the door of your stamp positioning tool and stamp that down onto the cardstock. I always stamp my turnabouts 2 times before rotating and switching colors. So you'll see me do that here on this one, but throughout the rest of this video, I'll only show you 1 stamping, but just know I am actually stamping it 2 times. And then you're going to turn your jig, so the number 2 is now in the top right corner. You're going to clean off the stamp and bring in color number 2. Ink that up just as before. These are big stamps, so using a bigger stamp pad is really helpful rather than mini cubes, but you can do it that way. Close the door and press that into place, and you'll see that multicolored background start to develop, which is a look you can't get as easily with traditional background stamps. So turnabout stamps are special in that you are getting that multicolored background. So I turned my jig so the 3 was in the upper right hand corner and inked it with my 3rd color. I'm going to turn it so the 4 is in the top right corner and come in with my last color, which is a nice brown. I love it here with just the 3 colors. It's beautiful. So don't think you have to do all 4 colors. You can definitely stop anytime and get multiple different looks by just changing up how many inks you use. So there's my background with all 4 colors inked. We'll set that aside, and I'm going to bring in the Birthday Basics Turnabout stamp, and I'm also going to be featuring the die set when I make the cards. So make sure your alignment guide says this side up, line up the X's with the alignment guide and the jig, take your stamp, put it stamp side down, and line it up with the pictures on that alignment aid. When those are lined up, you'll close the door of your stamp positioning tool to pick up the stamp. Make sure your jig is in the corner of your tool. Take off the alignment guide. Adhere your paper with temporary adhesive to the jig in the registration marks, and the 1 should be in the upper right hand corner. For this one, I'm going to use 4 different colors of ink. I'll start with a turquoise color for my first stamping. So the 1 is in the upper right hand corner on my jig. I'll stamp that down, and remember, I'll be stamping each of these 2 times to intensify the ink color, but you're only seeing me stamp it 1 time on screen. So I always turn my jig and then clean my stamp. So the 2's in the upper right hand corner, I can go ahead and ink it with my 2nd color, which is kind of a lime green. You can use any of your favorite inks for this. I've turned it, so the 3's in the upper right hand corner, cleaned my stamp and bringing in my 3rd color of bright yellow. You can see as this is developing, we're creating banners, and each of the pieces on the banner are different colors. I love that. All right, so the 4 is in the upper right hand corner after I turned it, so I'm bringing in my 4th color, a pink, and when I stamp this down, you're gonna see how the cupcakes have different color on the top than they do with their wrapper. The snow cones have different colors. The banner is different colors. I love this Turnabout stamp. It's so fun for birthdays. You can do it in so many different colors. All right, for the 3rd background, we're using the To the Point Turnabout stamp. This one you can ink in one turn 2 different colors because the cactus plants are on one end and the pots are on the other end. So we're going to repeat the same exact thing, putting our alignment guide on the jig, putting our stamp side down onto that alignment guide, making sure the X's on the alignment guide and the jig are also lined up and the jig is in the right hand corner, and then pick up your stamp with the door of your stamp positioning tool. Remove that alignment guide, adhere your paper with temporary adhesive onto the jig. Now the cactuses are on the bottom half of the stamp and the pots are on the top. So I will be using 8 colors of ink, 4 shades of green, 2 teal colors, and 2 orange colors for this stamp, for a total of 8 colors. So you'll see here I'm inking the bottom half of the stamp with the green and the top half with the teal. Now, one of the reasons that I do double stamping when doing turnabout stamps is because oftentimes there's a lot of the stamp that does not have images on it, but it's open space that can easily collect ink on it, and if you press too hard, you can get that down onto your paper. So instead of pressing hard, I like to stamp it 2 times and not risk getting that excess ink on my paper. So I've turned it so the 2 is in the upper right hand corner, and I've switched to a different green and now an orange. And you can see now some of those cacti are getting their pots, and what's really cool is that the cactuses are multiple different colors of green. I love that so much. So here's my 3rd color of green and my 2nd color of teal. So now I will have 6 different colors on this stamp. I love how innovative this stamp is. All right, so the 4's in the upper right hand corner now. I'm cleaning off that stamp for the last time and coming in with my final color of orange and my final color of green to complete this beautiful deserty background. My daughter is so into cactus right now that I just had to have this stamp set, and she really loves the card I made with it. So that's the final stamp, and now let's look at this amazing background with 8 different colors. So cool. All right, so now let's take these backgrounds and turn them into cards. For this first card, I am using that cactus background and the die cuts from the To the Point die set. I die cut them from white paper, and I'm going to inlay them back into the paper I cut them out just by putting purple tape on the back so that I can color them with Copic markers. I really wanted them to stand out, and so I decided to do this instead of just die cutting them from colored cardstock. Here's the Copic markers I'm going to be using. I like to show you them up front so you can pause that screen if you want, because as you can see here, I don't always set the caps up so you can see the color. Sorry, I just really get into what I'm doing. So I'm just coloring this with 3 different shades of green, some YG markers, and I like to use my lightest color and then jump right to my darkest color. Then I bring in my medium to blend that out and finish it off with my lightest. The reason I like to start with the lightest color is to put some saturation of ink down onto the paper, and that helps the ink blend out better. So this cactus is not very dark because I want to add some detailing to it, but I found it best to do the ink blending and then move on and let that ink dry before I add the details to it. So I'm going to do this pot here. I'm using 2 colors of orange and 1 corally color of red so that it will match the colors in my background. And as before, I'm starting with the lightest, then bringing in my darkest, my medium, and then my light to blend it all together. I'm also going to let that dry before adding details, and using two different shades of red to do the little cactus flowers, which is my favorite part. It just makes the cactus so cute. All right, for the detailing on this cactus, I'm bringing in a green G29 and adding some little spikes. I feel like these spikes look better if they're not lined up in a V shape, but offset, and then they look more realistic as the spikes on a cactus. All right, so we're going to let that dry. We'll come back and add more to that. I die cut the squiggle from the die set, but I'm not using the squiggle. I'm using the negative piece. I'm going to color that in right over the top of the pot, and that's going to give me some cool detailing on this cute terracotta type pot. Maybe it's been decorated and it's, you know, kind of native to like Arizona type pottery. So fill that in with the last line. And look at that fun pot. I love it. All right, so now I'm going to bring in a white gel pen, and I'm going to put a line on each of the little spikes I added to the cactus. This is going to make them a little bit more subtle, kind of gives them a 3D effect, and makes those spikes just come to life right off of this cactus. So we'll finish that up, and then I'm also going to use the gel pen to go under each of those wavy lines on the pot and fill in the little lines on each of the cactus flowers. Then I can go ahead and glue this together, and this will become the focal point of my card. Look how cute this cactus is when I glue on the little flowers. So adorable. I love that the die cuts 3, and I don't have to run this die through multiple times to get 3 flowers. All right, for this card, I am going to be using vellum, actually on all 3 of the cards. So I'm trying out the Scrapbook Adhesive Permanent Vellum Adhesive Runner. Let's see how this works. It's my first time using it, and I wanted to just see, is it going to live up to the hype? So make sure your finger is on the bumpy part, and then just pull back. I'm a little skeptical at this point, but let's see what happens once we get this on the paper. Now, I thought it was really clever to use 2 layers of vellum like this. It's hard to see once I put the card together, but it looks pretty cool if you're holding this card in your hand. So I'm putting that down the center of my paper, and once I stuck it on here, I was like, wow, you cannot see the adhesive. I was impressed. I recommend it. I think it's a good product to have on hand. So I'll put that cactus down. You might have noticed on that background there is an opening in the middle, and you can stamp that and fill it in with the other stamps in that Turnabout stamp set. I ran the die cut Howdy through my Xyron sticker maker so that I could stick it down without having to put tiny dots of glue on the back. And that completes the card front for this card. I'll just glue it onto a card base, and that will finish it right up. Now for the next card, we're going to be using that Birthday Basics stamp set and die set. So we'll bring that in, and we're going to be doing some die cutting with that large circle, which, by the way, that large circle you can turn into a balloon. And I'm going to cut it from some bright green cardstock. Once I have that done, I'm going to take the little stamp that is clusters of dots and stamp it all over this circle, and that will create a focal point for this card. I love the kind of tone on tone stamping here. Once that's done, I'm going to stamp a sentiment for this card that says Happy Birthday. It is from the same stamp set in that same pink I used on the background. We're starting to get all of our pieces together for this card. But I'm going to die cut the little party hat, and I'm going to do the same type of Copic coloring as I did for the cactus. Inlaying it back into the paper with the tape on the back just allows me to really color this without worrying about getting my marker on my glass mat or my hands. It just kind of helps hold them in place. So that's why they're inlaid back in there when I'm coloring them. So I'm just trying to make a turquoise hat here. And the little pom-pom that goes on top, I'll have it be green. So we have a multicolored hat. And then I brought in a darker blue marker and just added some zigzags on there for the detailing, and a darker green marker just to add some dark lines on top of this little pom-pom-like image. And then I'll glue those together, and that will be ready for my card. And I'm going to come back in and put all of this together. So I do have another vellum strip, and I'll use that vellum adhesive. I'm not sure why I put it down the middle. Like, old habits die hard, because usually you're trying to hide your vellum adhesive. I should have put it in the four corners, but yeah, I'm just used to trying to hide that adhesive. But with this one, you don't have to as much. So I'm going to hook this on with some glue down the middle, but foam squares on the end. And then I'll trim off those long edges so it's flush with the edge of this card front. And by the way, all of these card fronts I trimmed down to be 5 1/4 by 4 inches so that when I put them onto my card, they would have a nice little border of that colored cardstock around them. So that finishes off card number 2. I think the backgrounds are so full and so busy, you don't have to put a lot on the front of these cards, which I love. The background really shines. All right, so for the next card, it's very simple. I had the vellum strip across the middle, and then I took the circle and stamped Best Day Ever with some purples to match, and then added some Nuvo drops in white around that. And that's just a beautiful card because of that amazing background. So those are the 3 cards for today. I hope that you have enjoyed this video and maybe learned something about turnabout stamping. Why don't you leave us a comment below and let us know which of these cards is your favorite. And I would love it if you tried out turnabout stamping, because I think you'll fall in love with it just like I have. Thanks so much for stopping by and watching this video. Please subscribe if you're new to ScrapbookPal. We have new videos all the time. I'll see you again soon. Happy stamping. Bye.